Yo, what's up? It's Coach E here from Precision Movement, and today we're going to talk about 3 exercises to do if you've got tennis elbow, aka lateral epicondylitis. Tennis elbow is when you have pain in this lateral epicondyle area of the elbow joint, okay? This is the humerus, the upper arm bone is the humerus. The lateral aspect of that bone is called the lateral epicondyle. Now, tennis elbow often occurs when you're playing tennis because of all the different forces and positions of the wrist and the elbow. So if you're wondering if you do have tennis elbow, make sure you check the video that's gonna pop up here on YouTube to test if you've actually got the problem in the first place, okay? But if you know you've got the problem, then what do we have to do? Okay, so if it's an acute problem, you might want to rest. Like, let's say you're playing tennis, you've never felt it before, and the next day you're like, oh, that lateral epicondyle area hurts a little bit. In that case, you just want to take some rest. Okay, you want to ice it down, chill out for 24, 48 hours, maybe 72 hours if it's really intense. But after that, you should gradually get back to your normal daily life and playing tennis. Okay, but let's say you're in a tournament, a lot of 5-set epic matches, 7-6 tie breaks all the time, then you're going to want to deal with it properly because you might get into chronic pain if you've had it for 4 weeks or longer, and chronic pain needs a different treatment approach. Okay, and what we've got to do is we've got to bring blood flow to the area to restore tissue quality of the tendon. We've got to strengthen the muscles again because they've probably degenerated and atrophied, because when they're sore all the time, the body shuts them off and stops using them. So then they get weaker, and then when you try to come back to tennis or whatever sport you're playing, you're going to get injured and you're going to feel pain a lot quicker than before. Okay, so what we've got to do is we've also got to restore mobility to the wrist and the elbow joint. So I'm going to share 3 exercises with you. Now, the first is the active wrist extension mobilization, and I recommend this to anybody who's got pain in the elbows, especially if that pain involves any kind of gripping. So if you're a lifter, overhead presses, you got pain in the elbows, I'll do this exercise. I'll recommend this technique, okay? What it's going to do is it's going to restore strength, balance, and mobility to the wrist joint. So what you want to do is get in the 4-point position. We're going to start with the left hand here. We're going to do the left hand. Sit back on your heels, and keeping the elbow completely locked out, you're going to extend the wrist, okay, and flare the fingers. So flaring the fingers is extension and abduction of the fingers, okay? So you're going to hold that position, maintain the contraction all through the muscles as you come forward and go into a passive mobilization. So that's passive range right there. And I come back, and the minute I can lift my fingers off, that's my active range of motion, okay? And you're going to do this, maintain that contraction, mobilize a little bit into passive, not too aggressively, and then try to lift the fingers up off the floor as quickly as possible. Now you're going to do anywhere from 4 to 6 repetitions there, okay? The reason why we want to do this actively instead of just passively, instead of just getting on the floor and then rocking over it, okay, and relaxing this, is because when we do this, we're building strength in that range of motion, okay? We're activating the muscles, and we're just going into a little bit of passive to get a little bit of extra range, but predominantly we're working active range of motion, okay? Active range of motion, I like to call it range of control, because that's the range that you can actively control with your own muscular effort, okay? It's different than pulling it like this. The problem with that is if you're doing too much static or passive stretching and your range of motion increases, but you're not simultaneously increasing your range of control, you've got a deficit there where you have no active strength, but you've got that flexibility. So what happens is if you do that, you'll just tighten up again. Your neuromuscular system will just tighten those muscles up again. So it'll be kind of like a waste of time by stretching all the time. And number 2, if you do have a big gap in between range of motion and range of control, that gap is your injury risk, because that's where you don't have joint stability, and that's where you don't have muscular protection. So you just get into ligaments, and when ligaments get injured, it takes a long time to heal. Okay, so that's why we're doing the technique like I showed it to you here. And this is from a course that I have called Upper Limb Control. We're going to talk about that at the end a little bit. Okay, now the next technique is the eccentric dumbbell wrist extension. So what this is going to do, it's going to bring a lot of blood flow to the area because we're working those extensor muscles, but the eccentric is going to ensure we can get full range of motion, okay, because we're going to help ourselves into the full range of motion, and then it's going to cause that muscle damage that's going to stimulate muscle growth, hypertrophy, so restoring strength, and through that full range of control, okay? So here's how you do it. Support your forearm on a bench or a table, grab a light dumbbell. You might have to start at 2 pounds, up to 5 pounds if you've got this pain. You help yourself get into full wrist extension, okay? And then you lower it down really slowly. Take about 4 to 5 seconds, 6 seconds to lower it all the way down to full flexion, okay? You help yourself up all the way, hold it, and then slowly lower it down. Okay, so you're going to do 3 sets of 12 reps of that on the affected side, and you're going to do that on a daily basis. Now, you might feel pain when you do this, but if you've got the chronic version of tennis elbow, which is tennis elbow for 4 weeks or longer, then that's totally normal. You expect to feel some pain in that area, and as you do it after the first week or 2, that pain is going to be gone. All right? So the other thing with the eccentric, when you're up there, you got to make sure you're holding that with a strong grip. So you help it up, make sure you got a strong grip on that dumbbell, and then lower it down under control to full flexion. Okay, don't just stop it halfway, but lower it all the way. And you might have to fire up the flexors to get it to that full range as well. Okay, so that's the dumbbell eccentric extension, wrist extension. The final technique, the third technique, is the extended flare to flexed fist. So what this is a unique technique. Extended flare, so this is finger flare, all right, abduction and extension. So flexed flare is when you flex the wrist and you flare the fingers like that, okay? From here, you want to hold that, you want to maintain extension and flare and abduction while flexing constantly. So I'm firing up the flexors of the wrist, which are down in this area here. So I hold that for 5 seconds, then I slowly make a fist and go into wrist extension. Okay, and I hold that, a strong fist and strong wrist extension for 5 seconds. Then I go back down to flare, flexed flare, hold for 5, it's active, I'm working the whole time, and then extended fist. I'm holding that strong grip, actively contracting and squeezing as I'm actively extending the wrist. Okay, and this technique is going to restore full range of control, again, not just range of motion, not just stretching my wrist, but full range of control that's going to allow you to grip things while you're doing the different type of wrist movements, flexion and extension. Okay, that's very common in tennis. Serves, whipping it around, flexing it while you're holding onto the racket so it doesn't go flying. Okay, so these 3 techniques could get you completely out of pain from lateral epicondylitis, aka tennis elbow. However, if you've got tennis elbow, this might just be a symptom of dysfunctions elsewhere that you've got to fix up. Otherwise, they're going to move up the kinetic chain. Okay, you might have pain here in tennis elbow, but that might move to the shoulder next. Or if you might already be suffering from shoulder pain. Okay, this is why I've designed the course called Upper Limb Control. It's to restore full function of the wrists, the hands, the fingers, and the elbow. Okay, because if we're not restoring full function, which includes mobility and strength, and working all of the muscles, there's a lot of different muscles in this area, then you're just waiting for an injury to happen somewhere else to chain. You might fix it temporarily here, but it's going to move somewhere else because our body's going to compensate for the dysfunction in some other way. Okay, so I've got a presentation where I break down kind of the details, the science behind these compensations and how problems can kind of manifest in different areas of the body that you can watch at the link at the end of this video. So check that out. Let's make sure that your body's in good shape so you can continue to do the things that you love and do them better. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you there. Peace.